Hello, I'm Otto, and welcome back to Dyson Sphere program. So in the last episode, we set up a blueprint that brings in 3 ingredients and uses assembling machines. And we use this blueprint to make some electric motors and some Deuteron fuel rods. We also continued placing some blueprints that we've created in previous episodes, so we now have steel and stone brick. So the next thing on the list is we definitely need some carbon nanotubes, and the reason why is because that is the next ingredient that we need to make some mini fusion power plants. We are currently kind of running on fumes. We have very little hydrogen, and that means very little, if any, hydrogen fuel rods over here, and pretty much none right here too. So we're basically running on fumes. So if we go look at our oil production, we are pretty much out of both over here as well. So that is kind of where we're at. Our oil is just barely trickling in. We're not quite full capacity over here. So I think I might just add in, we're just going to bring in a little bit over here. So I'm going to add in, let's do 500, sure. Come on. Let's just add, we'll just give it to this guy over here. So that'll help a little bit, not much. You can also see that our research has stalled. So the reason why is because we are out of the blue cubes. Well, we're going to basically be out of the red as well. But for now, we're out of blue cubes, and that is because we do not have any circuit board production. We don't have any circuit board production because the iron that we have tapped over here for that is pretty much dry. So we are going to delete some of these belts, and we're going to do the same thing that we did over here, and we're just going to add a little bit in. This is a kind of a temporary band-aid. It's just something that we kind of need to do. So I'm going to add that here for the gears and not the gears. Yes, for the gears and the circuit boards. And since we're here and doing this anyways, we might as well add one for the magnets over here as well. It's janky, but you know what? We got them in there. Okay, so we need to get back into what we're doing in this episode. So I have 88 of the chemical plants, and that is next on the list. We're going to be making 2 different builds, one that brings in 2 ingredients and one that brings in 3. The 2 ingredient build is what is up next because we desperately need the carbon nanotubes. So we're going to be building those right here. We are going to need a tower, and we're going to line it up on in the same place that we've been placing them. And what do we need? So we're going to need to bring out 2 ingredients. We're going to have a main ingredient, let's call it ingredient 2, on each of the side lanes, and then we're going to share one in the middle. That's going to be our number 3 item. Yes, and I definitely need to get power so that we can turn on the factories that we have that create the drones and the vessels. Anyways, so carbon nanotubes, where did those go? So we need titanium, not titanium. Yes, we need titanium and we need graphene. Since graphene is the one that we need the most of, I am going to bring that in to slot 2. We are not going to actually bring it in until we're done with the build. And then we also need titanium, so that is going to be in slot 3. There we go. Okay, so let's drag these all the way down. Alright, so for the chemical plants, we are pretty much just going to do what we've been doing, and we're going to line these up near the end, and we're going to drag this through. So we need 11 of these, but we need to go almost all the way to the end. So if you get to the end and you have 12 or 13, we definitely want to tab through this a couple times. Hit it 3 times, and then place it. And the reason why is because once you, like, we're right on the equator at this point, and if you were closer to the tropic line, this would not be able to be any tighter, so we wouldn't be able to place 13, we would only be able to place 11. So I can demonstrate that here. We would only be able to get to 11 versus if we were up here, we would be able to get to 13 in the same time, or in the same distance. So we have 11 on this side, and we are also going to have 11 on this side. Make sure they're lined up. Tab, tab, tab. There's the 11. And then we need an output belt. So we are going to have an output belt here. And same on the flip side. And then we're just going to do it all again in reverse. So we're going to have another row of 11. And on the side, we are bringing in the graphene into the first slot and the titanium into the next slot. And then, of course, the same on the other side. That is going to be our 44. That's going to be our 44 chemical plants. Excuse me. Graphene on the inside and titanium on the next belt. And as we've done before, so you could either set this up as just kind of a raw blueprint. I am obviously going to make this into the carbon nanotubes. So I'm going to go ahead and add this in. A lot of the builds that we're making here are also temporary. So I don't know if you just noticed that, but we have the ability to make carbon nanotubes with graphene and titanium. Later on, we also have the ability to make carbon nanotubes from a singular item, the what is that called? Stalagmite crystals. So we will get into that eventually, but this build for now is going to be exactly what we need. Okay, so on the central lane here, we need to bring in 2 items. We need to bring in on this belt and bring into this machine and bring into this machine. And then we're actually going to do this different. We're going to have this one come in here. Yeah, that'll work. And just alternate. So that's that. We are using the piler sorter to output here and here for the other machine. So these are both going to share the middle. And then these, it doesn't really matter, just in and in. And then the same on the flip side. Yeah, let's get these lined up. Good enough for me. And we do not have these placed, so they are not going to get the whatchamacallit, the sorters. So let's place one of our babs down to help us out a little bit. Yeah, that is much better. All right, and the last thing that we need is power poles. So we are going to start on the back side. And we're going to go on, I think, the inside lane. No, we're going to go on the outside lane. So we're going to go on the outside lane here. And let's say the inside of the last row of chemical plants. And then the inside of the last row of chemical plants here. And we're not going to skip every other because there are going to be some situations where these won't actually cover everything, as you can see right here. So we are just going to place them every single chemical plant. So we will need basically 2 for each column. Yay, we have unlocked purple science. And then, as I said in the last episode, and this is a good case in point, it is always a good idea to give the ILS its own tower. Alright, so that is our build for carbon nanotubes, and we definitely want to go ahead and get this going. So we're going to request in a little bit. We could do, let's say, the 3,000. I don't even think we have enough. We will eventually have enough of the graphene, so that's fine. Actually, this build is perfectly viable with graphene, so we will be dropping this in probably the next episode. I will collect some chemical plants in between this episode and the next, and we will use this for graphene. This build is also usable for not just the carbon nanotubes and graphene, but it's also usable for the plastic, so this is kind of a 3-in-1. We have arrived, and let's just give this 1,000 for now. We're just waiting on the titanium. I guess it's probably coming in from outside, maybe? Anyways. So, like I said, that is our 2-ingredient item, and that will start crafting, and then we have, yay, some carbon nanotubes. So that will be provided to our fusion power plants, which are over here. I believe that is the only ingredient we are currently missing. Okay, some supermagnetic rings. But that is something that will kind of be, well, until we get that build up and running, it's going to be a little bit of a pain. How's power? Power is very slowly dropping. We are definitely not going to be able to keep up with this too much longer. Okay, so the next build, which we can make right next door, is going to be for 3 ingredients and chemical plants. Okay, so we are going to have a it's very similar structure. We have belts on the outside here and here, and then a shared belt in between. So we are going to do something similar here, but we're going to kind of do it in reverse. So the middle line is going to be a return. And then we are going to take our chemical plants and run this all the way up. We will need to tab, tab, tab to get to 11. And let's make sure that lines up with these. It does. And that goes for both sides. And then at this point, all of the ingredients that we are going to have coming in will be shared in between these in the middle. So this will be... Okay, so I'm actually going to have slot 2, which is going to be whatever we have the most of, be right in the middle. It seems a little counterintuitive, but I promise it'll work out. So that's going to be the slot 2, and this is going to be slot... No. That is 3. This one will be 4. There we go. And then we will have another set of chemical plants over here. They will then also have their own belt that is outputting on the outside, and that goes around the back. I didn't clean up the belts on the back side of this, but that is definitely something that we should probably do.
Mineral depleted.
Okay, and then same thing over here. We need to do the ingredients. The first one is going to be number 3. This one is going to be number 2. With number 2 being whichever item that we need the most of. And then this one is going to be number 4. So let's get those belts down. And then another set of chemical plants. Making sure they are all lined up together. And then we need an outfeed belt going back into the ILS. That is going to be around the back side. Oh, that went too far. Okay, so for these ingredients, we are going to be taking from both sides. So we are going to need to use all 4 of these slots. So this one is going to go from the 3rd lane over, all the way over to that one. This one is going to go all the way over to this one. And then we've already seen how we can do the 1st lane and 2nd lane for this one, and the 2nd lane and 1st lane for this one. This one will get a pile sorter over here. And then these are going to share one in the middle. And then same thing here. We need to stretch over all 3 lanes. First one in, second one in, and second one in, and first one in. So we didn't talk about like what the 3 ingredient items are. So sulfuric acid is the first one, and this build is also temporary. This one is more temporary than the carbon nanotube build. And then same with the crystal, the organic crystals. This is also a 3 ingredient, and both of these are temporary. The only one that's really here that is basically completely permanent is the plastic. That is the only one that we will be 100% keeping. The graphene is, yeah, maybe. Like, that's probably the next one that you would more than likely keep. It's not a bad idea to have some of these kind of as a backup in case you, for instance, your fire ice wasn't working out, or your stalagmite crystals. Yeah, stalagmite crystals? I can never remember. The stalagmite crystals. So it's always a good idea to keep some of these just in case. That's totally up to you. I'm personally going to be removing these once we get to the upgraded items. But for now, we're going to use this for sulfuric acid. The sulfuric acid is used for graphene and titanium alloy. So we do not have a permanent titanium alloy at the moment. And again, this is largely temporary because at some point we will be able to just kind of like mine this up. There are sulfuric acid oceans out there. And we will be able to just place some water pumps down and collect as much of that as we can fit into any of the areas. Yeah, you can kind of see I did not need to tab through that one. All right, and power pole placement is going to be pretty much the same as before as the other build. So we're going to have the inside section of that, and these all went too far. That is fine. That should be able to cover everything. And if for some reason this ends up not covering everything, like depending on which section of the tropic or the like the curvature of the world, if it just so happens that something like this doesn't line up, you can really, like, you can place these power poles anywhere. We could have placed them here, I think would have worked. But this should be fine. and then one for the ILS. Our power is still, oh boy, our max power is definitely dropping, so this is going to be fun. So we're not going to turn this on yet, but we are going to make a blueprint out of this. So this was stone, and like I said, whatever ingredient you need the most of, I prefer to have here, and then just kind of go down the list from there. So that is the refined oil, and then the last one is the water. Okay, and that is our blueprint. Like I said, this one is used for sulfuric acid and the organic crystals. The one over here with the carbon nanotubes is for carbon nanotubes, plastic, and graphene. And the only other one that we have to make is the fire ice build, and we're probably going to make that one in the next episode. I definitely want to make sure that our power is going to be stable. Like I said, we're tanking pretty hard, so if we can get to the point where we can make some of these, we have 3. That is it? Oh, come on. All right, so we're going to need to make some super magnetic rings. Or at the very least, make sure the build is completely focusing on that. We have some super magnetic rings being created over here somewhere. Right here. The turbines are struggling a bit. And I think that mostly just has to do with this section. So yeah, there's not really too much that we can do to speed this up, but okay, I'm not too worried about it. As long as these are all, for the most part, crafting, then that is perfectly fine. We can maybe hand feed a little bit to these guys just to make sure that they are beefed up a little bit. What did that need? 10 each? Okay, well, that'll get us a couple of extras. Anyways, so once we get to the point where we have enough of the fusion reactors, we are probably going to replace this section here, the graphite, with the fusion ones. So we might as well go ahead and start setting that up, because that's going to be, even with the 5, that is going to be enough power to kind of at least stabilize us for a bit. 6, even better. Alright, so let's start to get rid of some of these. And we want to stop bringing this in for sure. Let's just clear that, and let's go ahead and start bringing in the fuel rods. That way we have at least a couple of them ready to go. Alright, so thankfully these take up the same dimensions as the thermal power plants, so we are just going to line these up here. And we did not request any of these in. Perfect. Yeah, and we'll just we'll add this on as we continue on. Nope. Yeah, this couldn't have been better timing.
Mineral depleted.
Hey, there we go. And this is 15 megawatts each, so that will, like I said, start to stabilize us. And as we create more of the supermagnetic rings, which is definitely one of the next blueprints that we're going to be dropping, we need to drop a blueprint for the turbines and the supermagnetic rings that will start the production of, or that will continue the production of these, I guess, and really start to help us out. Okay, so I am in between this episode and next. I'm going to start to fill this out a little bit more. And yeah, in the next episode, we're going to make a fire ice build with the chemical plants. And we are going to start, we need to start working towards purple science. So we're going to be doing purple science soon as well. Yeah, so that is going to be it for me for this episode. I will see you in the next one, and thanks for watching.